That voice in your head that says, who do you think you are? The one that shows up right before you do something brave or bold. It's not a flaw. It's a signal. And the way you respond to it might be the difference between staying stuck or stepping forward. Welcome to the Building Resilience Podcast, episode 235, Why Imposter Syndrome is Not Such a Bad Thing, Part 2. Welcome to Building Resilience, a podcast where theory, practical strategies, and inspiring stories show you how to unlock your best life. I'm your host, Leah Davidson. As a certified life coach, speech-language pathologist, and nervous system resilience expert, it is my mission to teach you how to be more resilient to life's adversities. I will show you how to manage your mind, befriend your nervous system, process your emotions, and even eliminate stress. It's time to do more than just survive. It's time to thrive. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So this is part 2 of our deep dive on imposter syndrome. If you missed part 1, you can go back and check it out, episode 234 first. We talked about where imposter syndrome comes from, how it shows up, and why it is actually not the enemy. And today we're continuing the conversation with what those imposter feelings are trying to tell you, how to regulate your nervous system in the moment, and some strategies to help you take action even when self-doubt is present. But before we jump in, I just want to remind you that we're doing a ton of fun things in the Nervous System Journaling Club. We are journaling, we are doodling, and it's such a great way to regulate your nervous system and to learn more about your nervous system. It's also an incredibly safe, connected community, such great support, and I want to invite you to check it out. Now, I also have my resilience journal that's available on Amazon, and that also is a great resource to learn about befriending your nervous system. All right, let's jump into part 2 of imposter syndrome. So here's where I'm going to say something that might sound counterintuitive. Imposter syndrome is actually serving a purpose. It's not just random brain static. It's information. So let me tell you what I mean. You know where you never feel imposter syndrome? Doing things you don't care about. Now think about it. When was the last time that you felt like an imposter while you were doing something like folding laundry or scrolling through social media? Never. Because there's no stakes. There's nothing that's on the line. Imposter syndrome shows up when you're doing something that matters to you. It shows up when you actually care about the outcome, and it shows up when you're stretching towards something bigger than where you currently are. In other words, imposter syndrome is often a sign that you're heading in the right direction. Now, I just had this discussion with one of my kids the other night. All my kids are sort of at the stages in their life where they're either starting new jobs or new paths or doing new things. And one of them, I was sharing how we think we need to be confident to do certain new things. But instead, we need to understand that confidence is the result of doing things, not a requirement to doing them. You don't get confident first and then do the thing. You do the thing, and then confidence comes from having done it. So initially, we may feel like we're not sure what we're doing or we're not qualified. Maybe the voice in your head is saying things like, who do you think you are? You're not ready for this. People are going to see right through you. And then maybe your instinct may be to play it completely safe, to wait until you're ready. But what happens if you never feel ready? Which is what most of us figure out. We rarely feel ready. And maybe ready is not even the best goal to have. It's usually imposter syndrome shows up at the moment when you're about to level up. It's like your brain's last-ditch effort to keep you in familiar territory. But familiar territory, while it's comfortable, is also very limiting. Let's talk about what's actually happening when you feel like an imposter. Your brain is essentially saying, I don't have enough data to feel confident about this situation. And you know what? Your brain's probably right. You might not have enough data, but that doesn't mean that you don't belong there. It just means that you're at the beginning of gathering that data. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident professional was once new in their field. The difference between people who break through and people who stay stuck isn't that successful people never felt like imposters. It's that they felt like imposters and kept going anyway. There's actually some research that backs this up because studies show that a moderate level of anxiety can actually improve your performance. It keeps you alert and focused and motivated to prepare well. The key word here is a moderate amount. When imposter syndrome becomes overwhelming, it can be paralyzing. But when you recognize it as normal feedback from your brain, it can actually be quite useful. So here's another way to think about it. Imposter syndrome is like pain. Pain is not fun, but it does serve an important function. It tells you when something needs attention. So if you touch a hot stove, pain tells you to move your hand. If you're pushing yourself too hard, say at the gym, muscle fatigue is going to tell you to rest. Well, imposter syndrome can kind of function in the same way. It might be telling you that you do need to prepare more. Maybe you need to seek out a mentorship, or you need to build specific skills. It's not telling you to quit or that you don't belong. It's telling you to pay attention. Now, here's the thing where most people get it wrong. They try to get rid of the feeling first and then take action. But in this case, it's actually backwards. The feeling doesn't go away until after you've taken action and built up some evidence that you can handle the situation. So instead of waiting for imposter feelings to disappear, what if you learn to just take action while you're still feeling like an imposter? What if you got comfortable being uncomfortable? Now, this, of course, requires regulation, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore your concerns or jump into situations that you're completely unprepared or unqualified for. But there's a difference between reasonable preparation and trying to eliminate all uncertainty before you begin. The goal isn't to never feel like an imposter. The goal is to feel like an imposter, regulate, do what you need to do, and keep going anyway. Because on the other side of that discomfort is growth and competence, and yes, eventually confidence. So I want to give you a couple of strategies that I've seen work consistently, not just in my own life, but with the people that I work with. Now, these aren't quick fixes or magic bullets, but they're tools that you can actually use. The first strategy is to just stop treating imposter feelings like this emergency that you have and just start treating them like information. So reframe imposter syndrome as data and not drama. And here's what I mean by that. When imposter feelings show up, most people have one of two reactions. Either they try to push the feelings away, I shouldn't feel this way, I need to just think positively, or they take the feelings as like fact. I feel like I don't belong, therefore I don't belong. Now, both of these approaches kind of miss the point. The feelings aren't right or wrong, they're just data. Just information. I like to say that your feelings are very, very real. You are feeling them, but they're not necessarily the truth. They're just your brain's way of saying, hey, we're in new territory here. I'm going to need some extra support. So instead of fighting the feelings or believing them completely, try just getting curious about them. Ask yourself, okay, what specifically am I worried about? What would I need to feel more prepared? What supportive resources would be helpful right now? Because sometimes it is a question that you do want to up your skills and you do want to access resources, and that's okay. You can also ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario and how would I handle it? So let's say you're feeling like an imposter because you just got promoted and you're worried that you don't have enough experience for the new role. So instead of spiraling into, I'm going to fail and everyone will realize I'm not qualified, try asking something like, what specific skills does this role require that I haven't used much yet? And how can I build those skills quickly? Who can I talk to who's been in a similar position? What resources are available to help me succeed? So you see the difference? Instead of treating the feelings like evidence that something's wrong with you, you're treating it like information about what you need to succeed. So another exercise you can try is when imposter feelings come up, write them down. Literally, just write them down. Get them out of your head onto paper. And then here's the key thing. Write them as if they're observations, which they are, and not facts. So instead of writing, I don't know what I'm doing, write, I'm noticing that I feel uncertain about some aspects of this project. Instead of I'm going to fail, right? I'm worried about not meeting expectations. So the small shift in language helps you create distance between yourself and the feeling, because you are not your feeling. You are an observer of your feeling. And once you're observing it instead of being consumed by it, you can work with it more effectively. Now, the next strategy is about working with your nervous system instead of against it. Remember, when you feel like an imposter, your nervous system is often in some version of protective mode, hyper or hypo, so fight or flight or shut down, or freeze mode. Your body is literally preparing for danger, even though there's no actual physical threat, and you can't think your way out of a nervous system response. You have to work with your body to calm the response first, and then your thinking brain can come back online. So you can try some specific techniques. Now, of course, one technique that we can also turn to is the safety sequence, which I've got a whole separate video on if you want to go back and watch that to go deeper. But it's essentially a 3-step process. You're going to ask, step 1, am I safe? Because your nervous system is always scanning for danger. That's what we call interoception. So you're going to pause and ask, am I safe right now? Not 5 minutes ago, not later on today, but right now. If the answer is yes, and it usually is, you're sending a clear signal to your body that it doesn't need to be on high alert. You can't relax if your system thinks you actually are in danger, so this step actually matters. Am I safe? Now, step 2, do I feel safe? Now, this answer might be no, and that's okay. Now, instead of overthinking, I want to invite you to drop into your body. This is interoception, where you're tuning into your body in the here and now. So where do you feel tension? Where do you feel pressure? Where do you notice nothing at all? Just notice. You're not trying to fix or figure anything out. You're just trying to feel. And then step 3 is to acutely relax your body, because we know that stress cannot live in a relaxed body. Now, my go-to relaxation technique is the ragdoll. So where you just drop down. So you do a quick scan, find where you're holding the tension, and just soften for about 5 seconds. Let yourself go limp like a ragdoll. Even a short moment of release tells your system, hey, we're okay. And you're going to want to repeat this every time you need to come back to calm. Now, some of the other strategies you can use include something like box breathing. This is simple but incredibly effective, where you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold for another 4, and you're going to repeat this cycle again, 4 to 5, up to 10 times. This activates that parasympathetic nervous system. Remember that rest and digest system, that rest and digest response, where we find our safety in that zone of resilience, and it literally tells your body that you are safe. Another technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. This helps bring you back to the present moment. So you're going to notice 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This interrupts the anxiety spiral, and it grounds you in your present physical environment. And the next one is progressive muscle relaxation, where you're going to start with your toes and work your way up. You're going to tense each muscle group for about 5 seconds and then just release. This helps discharge the physical tension that builds up when your nervous system is activated. Now, here's what's really important to remember. You're not doing these techniques to eliminate imposter syndrome feelings. You're doing them to regulate your nervous system so that you can think clearly and take effective action while feeling like an imposter. So I want to be really clear about this because this is where a lot of us get stuck. We think that the goal is to feel confident before taking action. But again, that's not how it works. The goal is to feel whatever you're feeling, including imposter feelings, while still being able to access resources and make good decisions. So think of it like being nervous before a job interview. The goal isn't to eliminate completely the nervousness. A little nervousness is normal and can actually help you stay alert and perform well. The goal is to manage the nervousness so it doesn't overwhelm you or interfere with your ability to represent yourself effectively. Now, the last strategy is that you do have to build up evidence through action. Confidence isn't something that you develop in your head. It's something you develop through experience. Your brain believes evidence more than it believes thoughts. So you can tell yourself you're qualified all day long, but if you don't have any experiences to back that up, your brain's not going to buy it. But every time you take action, even a tiny bit of action, despite feeling uncertain, you are building a file of evidence that says, I can handle challenging situations. So here's how to do this systematically. You're going to start small. You don't have to tackle your biggest fear first. Just look for low stake opportunities to practice doing things while feeling uncertain. Maybe it's like speaking up in a meeting or volunteering for a project that stretches you slightly, or share an idea that you're not really 100% sure about. And then you want to document your wins. Keeping a record of times that you felt uncertain but took action anyway and things worked out. So this doesn't mean that you have to have knocked it out of the park every single time. It just means that you've navigated the situation competently. So write these things down because remember, your brain has a negativity bias. So it's much more likely to remember the times when things went poorly rather than the times when things went well. So writing it down gives you proof that there are times that things went well. Next, you're probably going to want to redefine success. Stop defining success as doing everything perfectly without any discomfort, and start defining success as taking meaningful action despite feeling uncertain. This shift in definition makes it much easier to build evidence of your competence. The key takeaway is every time you act despite feeling like an imposter, you're not just building confidence for that specific situation, you're building what we call general competence confidence, which is a belief that you can figure things out as you go. This is very different than specific confidence that you'll gain from a past experience from a specific thing, which is, I know I can do this because I've done it before. Whereas general competence confidence is, I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but I trust that I can handle whatever comes up. Here's the good thing, is that general competence confidence is transferable. Once you prove to yourself that you can navigate uncertainty in one area of your life, it becomes easier to tolerate uncertainty in other areas of your life. But you have to start. You have to be willing to feel incompetent while you're building competence. You have to be willing to feel like an imposter while you're becoming the person that you have confidence belongs in that space. Something to remember is that we live in a culture that is obsessed with confidence and certainty. We see people on social media who seem to have it all figured out, and we hear success stories that make it sound like successful people always knew they were destined for greatness. And we get messages that if we just believe in ourselves enough, everything's going to work out. But that's not actually how growth works. Growth requires uncertainty. It requires not knowing exactly what you're doing. It requires being willing to look silly or incompetent while you are learning. Now, the people who seem the most confident, they've usually just gotten better at being uncertain. They've learned to take action while feeling like they don't know what they're doing. They've built up evidence that they can figure things out as they go. So imposter syndrome, it really isn't a character flaw or a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a normal response to growth and challenge. It's your nervous system and your brain's way of saying, hey, we're in new territory. Let's be extra careful. Now, the problem isn't that you feel like an imposter sometimes. The problem is when you let that feeling stop you from taking action toward things that matter to you. Lastly, I want to talk about community, because imposter syndrome thrives in isolation. When we feel like frauds, we're less likely to share our struggles, which makes the problem worse. Connecting with others, whether it's through like a mentorship or peer groups or just honest conversations with friends, can remind you that you're not alone. Everyone has moments of doubt. And since imposter syndrome stems from the belief that you don't belong, you want to start looking for examples of others who have done what you want to do. Try to have a little bit of that, if they can do it, why not me attitude. To sum up, I want you to remember first that feeling like an imposter often means you're heading in the right direction. It means you're doing something that matters to you, something that's stretching you beyond where you currently are. Secondly, you don't have to wait until you feel confident to take action. Confidence comes from action, not the other way around. And thirdly, you can learn to work with your nervous system instead of against it. When imposter feelings show up, that's your cue to allow them and to regulate your nervous system so that you can then think clearly and act effectively. And finally, every single time you take action, despite feeling uncertain, you're building up evidence of your competence. You're proving to yourself that you can handle challenging situations. The goal isn't to never feel like an imposter. The goal is to feel like an imposter and keep going anyway, because on the other side of that discomfort is growth and competence, and eventually the kind of confidence that comes from knowing that you can figure things out as you go. Your imposter feelings aren't trying to sabotage you, they're actually trying to prepare you. So listen to them, work with them, but don't let them stop you. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Building Resilience podcast. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about managing stress, building resilience, and leading a more purposeful life, then make sure we're connected on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. You can also subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com/newsletter. Looking forward to connecting.